Hello everyone, welcome! So let's create some more Christmas cards using the clear stamp and die of the month for July. This one is called Pine Cones and Holly. Let me show you all of the dies. It cuts out everything, so it cut out this large stamp with the Christmas foliage and inside of it as well. And then you get dies that will cut out the sentiments and all the other little things. Here is a 3D embossing folder for July. It's called Adorning the Tree, and I'm going to be using both of these clubs to make a couple of cards today. The cardstock I'm using is called Tuscan. It's kind of new to the Spellbinder shop, and I'm going to stamp out the large stamp on this using some Versamark ink so that I can emboss it with some gold embossing powder. Once my heating tool has heated up for a minute, I can bring that to the paper and melt this beautiful gold embossing powder. It's just fun to watch. I never get tired of this. Let me turn this so I don't burn my fingers. There we go. And that is ready to go. Isn't that pretty? I wanted to add some color to it, so I'm using some really bright Distress Oxide inks. I'll add a little bit over the various images on this. There's pine boughs and pine cones and all sorts of pretty things. And then I can just wipe the ink off using a tissue so that it doesn't stay on the embossed lines. I'm going to use another panel of the Tuscan cardstock and 3D emboss it. I use that sprayer, the Tim Holtz sprayer, to spray both sides at least once or twice before I run it through my machine. And here it is embossed. It's so gorgeous. I put those panels aside so that I can stamp out my sentiment. I used the small cutting die that goes in the center of the Christmas foliage to stamp on that. And then I can start gluing this together. Everything's going to go down flat. Just using liquid glue for this embossed panel. And then more glue for my sentiment panel. And I added a few gold gems. And here it is all done. It's kind of unusual colors for Christmas. That pink is called Velvet Rose, and it's also a new color from Spellbinders. So pretty. For my next card, I'm going to use more of the Velvet Rose, and I wanted to see what that looked like embossed with this 3D embossing folder. You can see droplets of water, so I was just kind of drying it there for a minute. I'll stamp out another sentiment on some more Velvet Rose cardstock. And this time I'm going to emboss it with some clear embossing powder. Just pour that on top. My heat tool was already warmed up, so I brought that right to the paper to melt the embossing powder. So I'm going to add some ink to the 3D embossed panel, and I wanted my sentiments to coordinate, so I'm adding some ink over that. This one is called Festive Berries. And then I'll bring in a tissue just to wipe the ink off the embossed lines. And next I'm going to add ink to my 3D panel. This really helps bring out the embossing. And I did get kind of heavy-handed with this panel, so I end up doing this again and using a lighter touch. But I wanted to show you how pretty this Festive Berry ink looks on the Velvet Rose cardstock. I used another piece of the Velvet Rose to cut out this rectangle panel, and I'm using a small hole punch to punch holes on either side of this. I'm going to use some black and white baker's twine and just kind of push that through the hole. I didn't think it was going to fit, but I pushed it through and I was able to pinch the other side and pull it right through, so it wasn't too hard. And I'll do that on the other side as well. And this is going to go across the middle of my card. So I die cut the sentiment using the coordinating dies. That's going to go right in the center. But let's pop up this small rectangle with some foam squares. It's raining pretty hard here in Illinois. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but we have a lovely summer rain going on here. I'll flip it over and tape the baker's twine on the back using some yellow tape. Then I can just trim my ends. And now I can start putting this card together. So I'll glue on the sentiment. And then my little mini sentiment that goes underneath. There's a lot of pretty sentiments in this set. I'm going to glue this whole panel onto another piece of the brushed black cardstock. It's nice to use for Christmas because it has some sparkle to it. And then I'm going to add some embellishments, some silver embellishments, and here it is all done. I don't know whether you guys like pink Christmas cards, but I adore them. So I make quite a few. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this close-up look at the clear stamp and die of the month, as well as the 3D embossing folder for July. I hope you have a wonderful crafty day. Bye.